Some heroes don't wear uniforms or carry medals. Sometimes they kneel beside a broken truck, hands covered in grease, while the world passes them by. And sometimes that quiet act of kindness is the spark that changes everything. Ben Carter was on his knees next to an old pickup truck parked on a dusty roadside. He worked without fuss, tightening bolts, his shirt stained with oil. A neighbor passed by and sneered, "Fixing some farmer's truck for free? Your own roof's still leaking, Carter." Ben didn't answer. He just kept working, calm and steady. In a nearby car, his little boy, Logan, sat sipping juice, watching his father with wide eyes. To Logan, his dad could fix anything. But the next morning, everything changed. 3 black SUVs rolled up to Ben's rundown house. The same neighbor who mocked him now peeked from behind his curtain, whispering, "Who was that old man yesterday? And why are government cars here for a broke mechanic?" Ben's house was nothing fancy. Just outside Thomas, Georgia, it leaned with age. The porch groaned, the heater clanked, and the roof leaked when it rained. But to Ben and Logan, it was home. Ben was only 36, but life had worn him down. His hands showed years of hard work, from military service to fixing tractors. The hardest blow came 3 years ago when cancer took his wife, Melissa. She'd been a math teacher, the planner in the family. Cancer didn't care about plans. After her passing, Ben left the Army. They had offered help during her illness. But once she was gone, he knew where he had to be, home with Logan. The Army lost a skilled mechanic. Logan gained a full-time dad since then. Ben did every job he could. He hauled soil, fixed engines, and worked late nights delivering goods. Sometimes he helped out at a friend's garage. The pay was never steady, but it kept the lights on and Logan in daycare. He never complained. Each morning, he made breakfast for his son. Each night, no matter how tired, he read Logan a bedtime story and tucked him in. Good dads show up, he told himself, even when they're running on empty. The nights were the hardest. Memories of Melissa crept in, so did worries about bills and the future. But through it all, Ben held on to a quiet strength. He helped others, even when he was struggling, not for recognition, just because it was the right thing to do. Ben lived by a code, something his old sergeant had told him back in boot camp. You help because it's right, not because it gets you anything. To Logan, his father was more than a dad. He was a hero. The boy would trace the scars on Ben's hands and ask, "Did you get this fixing a tank?" Ben would smile and nod. Some scars didn't come from machines. They came from loss and love. They didn't have much, no vacations, no new car. But they had something that mattered more, a steady life built on love, honesty, and hard work. One golden evening, the two were driving home after a delivery job. Logan was humming softly in the back seat when Ben saw it, an old truck, parked on the side of the road, steam rising from the hood. A tall man stood beside it, wearing a stained jacket and watching the engine in silence. Ben pulled over. "Hang tight, buddy," he told Logan. He grabbed his tool bag and stepped out. The man didn't wave, didn't ask for help, just stood still, as if waiting for something else. Ben leaned into the hood and muttered, "Corroded terminals. This thing's older than me." Still no response. "Name's Ben," he said, fishing out his tools. The man stayed silent, eyes steady like he was studying Ben. Not just the truck. Ben didn't mind. He'd met quiet taps before, veterans, farmers, folks who didn't speak unless needed. He kept working. Then came that voice from behind. Well, sneered Mr. Dobbs, Ben's nosy neighbor, "helping strangers while your own place falls apart. Should have patched your roof instead." Ben ignored him. He wiped sweat from his brow and kept going. He didn't care what people like. Dobbs thought. Life wasn't about appearances. From the car, Logan watched his dad closely. To him, this wasn't just another repair. It was a moment of quiet heroism. After nearly 40 minutes, the engine roared to life. Ben tapped the hood twice. "She'll get you home," he said. The old man finally spoke. "You didn't ask my name." Ben shrugged. "Didn't need to. But I won't forget yours." The man nodded, climbed into his truck, and drove off. As the dust settled, Ben turned to his son. Logan looked up with shining eyes. "Dad," he whispered, "do you think he was someone important?" Ben smiled. "Didn't matter. He needed help. That's all I saw." The next morning felt like any other. The ceiling fan clacked slowly overhead. The floor creaked beneath tired footsteps, and the smell of instant coffee filled the kitchen. Ben Carter sliced up a bruised apple for Logan, who sat at the table. Munching toast and rambling about dinosaurs, it was peaceful, until it wasn't. A low rumble interrupted the quiet. Tires rolled onto gravel outside, then the sound of doors. Horns. Something official. Ben looked up, confused. He walked to the window, pulled back the curtain, and froze. 3 black SUVs were parked perfectly in line along the curb, shiny, tinted windows, government plates, like they didn't belong on his worn-out street. Ben's pulse jumped. Logan peered up from his toast. "Daddy, there's people outside." Ben stepped out onto the porch, still barefoot, a towel slung over his shoulder. Logan's toys were scattered across the patchy yard. Suddenly, everything felt exposed. From the center SUV, a tall man in plain clothes stepped out. He moved with calm precision, shoulders squared like a soldier. 2 more followed behind him, scanning the area, silent, trained. The tall man walked forward and pulled a leather folder from under his arm. He opened it. Inside were government credentials and a badge. "Mr. Carter," the man said, "I'm Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Whitaker, retired. I work with the Veteran Personnel Outreach Division. Someone you helped yesterday would like to speak with you." Ben's mind began to race. Was it something from his military past? A mistake with his discharge papers? Trouble with Logan's custody? Then the SUV door opened again, and out stepped the man from the broken-down truck. But this time, he looked nothing like yesterday. Gone was the muddy jacket. Now he wore a clean gray blazer, polished boots, and a presence that couldn't be ignored. Ben stood straighter without thinking. It was instinct, the kind you don't forget after serving. The man spoke. "Ben Carter, I'm General Nathaniel Caldwell, retired. I once commanded special operations in Afghanistan. Now I advise the Department of Defense." Ben blinked. "Yesterday," the general continued, "you helped me. You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask." Ben swallowed hard. "I just saw someone who needed help." General Caldwell gave a slow nod. "That's exactly why we're here." He glanced toward the porch. "May we come inside?" Ben hesitated for just a second, then nodded. "Yes, come in." Logan's eyes widened as the general stepped into the house. Caldwell crouched slightly, smiled, and said, "You must be Logan. Your dad's a good man." Logan grinned. "He fixes everything." Ben chuckled quietly and nudged his son. "Go play for a bit, buddy. I'll be right there." With Logan safely in his room, Ben and Caldwell sat across the kitchen table. No uniforms, no ranks, just 2 men and the hum of a sputtering toaster in the background. Caldwell's tone shifted. "Mr. Carter, yesterday, you didn't just repair a truck. You showed us something we've been looking for, character. You helped without asking questions. That matters more than rank." He slid an envelope across the table. Ben didn't touch it. "What is this?" he asked cautiously. Caldwell smiled faintly. "An offer. One that could change your life and your son's." Ben's hands stayed flat on the table, careful not to grab the envelope too quickly. His eyes studied the man across from him. "You're offering me a job?" he asked slowly. "Because I fixed your truck." Caldwell didn't blink. "No, I'm offering you a future. Because you fixed it for the right reasons." Ben let out a quiet laugh. "I don't have a degree. I haven't worked in any official place since the Army. Most days, I'm under tractors or chasing down old parts. I'm just a mechanic." "Sir, exactly," Caldwell said. "And that toolbox in your truck, that's all the resume we need." Ben leaned back in his chair, still unsure. "So, what is this? A recruitment pitch?" "Something like that," Caldwell replied. "We're starting a new program, the Veteran Technical Corps. A hands-on team to help fix and rebuild what's broken in this country, infrastructure, utilities, emergency response equipment, things most people never think about until they stop working." Ben, listen. "We're not looking for polished degrees," the general continued. "We want people who've served, people who know how to show up, people like you." He tapped the envelope gently. "Inside is everything. Salary 3 times what you earn now, health coverage, housing support, and a tuition fund for Logan's future." Ben didn't open it. He stared at the envelope like it might disappear if he blinked. "I don't know," he said softly. "Feels like folks like me stopped getting noticed a long time ago." Caldwell's voice was calm. "Not anymore. That's why we're here." Ben didn't say yes. "Not yet." But for the first time in years, someone was seeing past his grease-stained clothes and rundown house, and offering more than just pity. They were offering purpose. Ben Carter sat at his kitchen table, staring at the unopened envelope General Caldwell had left in front of him. It wasn't just a letter. It felt like a crossroads. It could mean change, or it could mean risk. Across the table, Caldwell waited, calmly. He didn't push. He didn't brag. He just let the offer speak for itself. "You're serious," Ben finally said, more to himself than anyone else. "I am," Caldwell replied. "We don't want a symbol. We want someone who leads by example. You already do." Ben gave a half smile, still guarded. "But I'm not trained for that anymore. I'm just trying to stay ahead of bills. My son's shoes are secondhand. The bathroom won't stop leaking. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough." "You are," Caldwell said. "But now, you can do more. Not just for you and Logan, but for others like you." Ben finally opened the envelope. Inside was a full breakdown. Salary, training details, housing support, a guaranteed post in Georgia, and a tuition voucher for Logan when he's older. Nothing vague, nothing half-promised, just clear numbers and real opportunity. Ben let out a slow breath. "I never thought anyone noticed guys like me." Caldwell leaned forward slightly. "We notice, and it's time the rest of the country did too." Ben nodded slowly. "I'm still fixed on the papers. Maybe this wasn't luck. Maybe it was the reward for staying true to his values when no one was looking." Caldwell stood and buttoned his jacket. "You've got 48 hours to decide. Training starts next month in Atlanta. You'll be home on weekends." He paused at the door, then added, "Bring your tools. The first day's hands-on." Ben gave a short laugh. "That I can do." As the black SUVs pulled away and disappeared down the road, Ben stood on the porch holding the envelope. For once, he didn't feel stuck. He felt ready. 6 months passed faster than he expected. Ben Carter was now deep into the Veteran Technical Corps training program in Atlanta. The first few weeks were tough. Classrooms filled with former mechanics, medics, and soldiers. Some had degrees. Most didn't. All of them carried stories like his, years of service followed by years of struggle. Ben felt out of place at first. He hadn't taken notes since the Army. The systems were newer, more technical. But muscle memory kicked in. So did his quiet determination. He stayed after class to ask questions, helped others who were falling behind. And when the practical sessions began, Ben didn't just pass. He led. He showed others how to troubleshoot without manuals, how to fix problems with whatever you had, and how to keep calm when things got tough. His instructors noticed. "You've got something rare," one told him. "Experience, humility, and the respect of your peers." Back home, life was changing. Logan, now 6, was in a better school. Their new rental house didn't leak. It had a small backyard where Ben built a sandbox by hand. The heater worked. The fridge didn't rattle. Ben still fixed things on the side, a faucet here, an engine there. But now, it was by choice, not out of desperation. The job he received after completing the training placed him in charge of infrastructure across rural Georgia. He worked with local crews, inspected power lines, coordinated with emergency services, and even trained the next wave of recruits. And every morning, when he laced up his boots, he remembered the moment that started it all, when he stopped to help a stranger on the side of the road, not for praise, but because someone needed help. The biggest surprise came a year later. An invitation from Washington, D.C. General Caldwell, now working closely with national leadership, had asked Ben to speak at a congressional hearing on veterans in the workforce. Ben had never stood at a podium in front of cameras before, but when he walked into that room, wearing a simple gray suit, he wasn't nervous. He just told the truth. "I never asked for a handout," Ben said into the microphone. "I just wanted a chance to keep serving, and someone gave me that chance. Not because of a fancy resume, but because they believed my character still mattered." The room was quiet. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed. But Ben wasn't there to impress. He was there to represent every veteran who had felt invisible, every worker who had been overlooked, every father doing his best with what little he had. After that speech, things shifted. More states signed up to join the Veteran Technical Corps. Colleges and trade schools offered new programs. Local governments started their own chapters. And in the center of it all, Ben Carter, no longer just a mechanic, now a mentor, a symbol, A reminder that even quiet acts of service can ripple across the nation. Ben Carter didn't ask for fame. He didn't seek cameras or awards. But the story of the day he helped a stranger on a dusty road began to travel far and wide. News outlets picked it up. Veteran groups began sharing it. Soon, towns across the country, from flood-prone Louisiana to struggling Appalachian counties, were reaching out to start their own veteran technical corps branches. Everywhere there were broken systems, people started asking, "Do we have a Ben Carter in our town?" Applications to the program soared. Colleges reached out to partner. Cities began offering training sites. And Ben, he stayed grounded. He still did his job, checking power lines, training new techs, and meeting with city workers. He still fixed leaky pipes for neighbors when he had time, and every night, he still read bedtime stories to Logan. One day, a national morning show invited him on. He politely declined. A publishing company offered a book deal. He turned that down too. When asked why, Ben said, "I didn't fix that truck to be remembered. I fixed it because someone once helped me when I had nothing. It just felt right to do the same." But behind the scenes, he quietly became a voice of reason. He sat in on advisory panels, helped design training modules, traveled to small towns to speak directly to veterans who'd felt lost, just like he once did. He didn't arrive in suits or limos. He wore his old boots and drove the same pickup, and he listened. One night after a town hall in Kansas, an older woman approached him. Her eyes were wet as she shook his hand. "My son came back from service and couldn't find his place," she said, "but now he's part of the program. He's building solar arrays." He smiles again. "You gave me my boy back." Ben's throat tightened. He wasn't used to being called a hero, but in that moment, he understood something. Small acts matter. One moment, one truck, one decision to help, it had led to everything else. General Caldwell hadn't forgotten either. He often spoke at national meetings, sharing Ben's story not as a feel-good tale, but as proof of what happens when the right people are empowered. He would tell the room full of leaders and politicians, "We spend billions on technology and gear. But what about character? What about people like Ben Carter? The ones who keep showing up long after the war is over." The story hit a nerve, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. Not because it was loud, but because it was true. Ben's act of service had no spotlight, no press, just a man kneeling beside a truck, helping without question. Caldwell called it invisible service. He told lawmakers, "We don't just need to thank our veterans. We need to trust them again, let them lead again, let them fix what's broken, not out of charity, but because they're the best for the job." That message took root. Soon, new policies were proposed, funding increased, partnerships expanded, and all of it could be traced back to a single moment. One man, one decision, and a little boy watching from the car. Back in Georgia, Ben's life remained simple. He still took Logan to school every morning, still packed his lunch with a note, still let him help tinker with small engines on the weekends. Sometimes they even swung by Mr. Dobbs' house, the same neighbor who once mocked Ben for helping strangers. One winter, Dobbs' heater broke. Ben fixed it without being asked. Logan asked him afterward, "Why help someone who used to be mean?" Ben ruffled his son's hair and said, "Helping isn't about who they are. It's about who we are." In a quiet corner of Ben's office sat the original envelope General Caldwell had given him. He never threw it away. To anyone else, it looked like plain paper. To Ben, it was more. It was proof that even when the world isn't watching, character still counts. That one choice can build a bridge to something bigger. That day, by the roadside, hadn't just fixed a truck. It had repaired something deeper in Ben, in the system, and slowly, in the country, and it reminded people everywhere, you don't need a spotlight to matter. You just need to show up. It all started with a story, not a viral video, not a press release, just a memory, read by General Nathaniel Caldwell in front of Congress. He stood before lawmakers, sharing the image of a man kneeling beside a stranger's truck, grease on his hands, a little boy watching from the back seat. Caldwell called it an act of invisible service. He told them, that moment, that simple act, is worth more than 1,000 resumes. It is the reason I believe people like Ben Carter are the strength of this country, not just when they wear the uniform, but long after they hang it up. At first, the room was skeptical, eyes on phones, fingers tapping on keyboards, but something shifted as Caldwell spoke, not because he shouted. He didn't have to. His voice was steady, direct, and filled with purpose. He wasn't appealing to pity. He was appealing to principle. We invest in readiness, in technology, in equipment. But if we forget the people who still live by the code of service, we lose. Something greater. News stations picked up that hearing. Veteran organizations posted clips. Soon, the story of Ben Carter was being told in classrooms, town halls, and boardrooms. Ben didn't chase the spotlight, but it found him anyway. Because truth travels, even when it starts small. Requests began pouring in. Municipal leaders wanted to meet him. Colleges invited him to speak. A state governor even asked him to help design a new training model for veteran trades. Ben stayed busy. He still worked in the field, managing inspections and mentoring young recruits. But now, he also served as an advisor, helping shape a movement. One evening, while reviewing a new training plan, he paused to look around his small office. On the wall was a map with pins marking every city the Veteran Technical Corps had expanded to. Dozens of towns, dozens of second chances dot in one corner of the desks at the envelope, faded now. Edges curled, the same one Caldwell had once. Slid across his kitchen table. Ben smiled. It had started with that envelope, that truck, that moment. One Saturday, Ben and Logan sat on the porch watching the sunset. Logan was older now, taller, his voice a little deeper. He had questions that day. Dad, do you ever think about that morning when the truck showed up? Ben nodded slowly. All the time. Do you think things would have turned out the same if you hadn't stopped to help? Ben looked at his son and said quietly, I don't know, but I'm glad I did. They sat there in silence for a while, comfortable, steady. Logan broke it with one more question. Do you think I'll ever do something that matters like that? Ben turned, rested a hand on his son's shoulder, and answered, You already do, every time you choose kindness. Every time you do what's right, without waiting for someone to thank you. That was the lesson Ben had carried from war zones to farmland, from hardship to hope. You don't fix the world in one big move. You fix it by doing the next right thing, by showing up, by helping. Even when no one's watching, in the years that followed, the Veteran Technical Corps became a national model. Other countries took notice. Programs based on the same principles popped up around the globe. But Ben stayed where he was needed most, with his team, with his tools, and with Logan. He still fixed broken things, a community center with a cracked boiler, a shelter with faulty wiring, a neighbor's car that wouldn't start in winter, and every time someone asked him why, he gave the same quiet answer, because it needed to be done. He never chased credit. He never expected applause, and that's exactly why people trusted him. Back in Washington, General Caldwell continued to use Ben's story to inspire action. In his speeches, in his meetings, in private talks with policymakers, he always returned to one image, a mechanic, kneeling in the dirt, helping a man he didn't know. We don't need more noise, Caldwell would say. We need more Ben Carters, and everywhere he spoke, someone remembered, someone acted, someone helped. The ripples never stopped. In the end, Ben Carter's legacy wasn't built on fame or fortune. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady. It was simple. It was strong. Because he showed what service really means, not just wearing the uniform, but living the values behind it every day, in every small decision, and somewhere in a small town. In Georgia, a father and son still sit on their porch sometimes. Quiet. Grateful. Whole. Not every hero is famous. Some wear worn-out jeans and carry a toolbox, but their impact, it lasts forever.